Hi everyone, my name is Kaylee Reimuller, and today for my Pecha Kucha presentation, I will be reviewing Eric Shawn's book titled Tattoos as Punishment: An Illustrated History of Tattooing in Japan. So this is Eric Shawn's first book, and I chose this book basically because I wanted to look at the intersection of biology and culture with body modification specifically. So this book currently retails at about $22, and you can find it on online shopping sites such as Amazon or Thrift Books. And it is available as a paperback, and it can also be bought through Kindle, so you can read it on your iPad or your Kindle. It is around 260 pages altogether, and overall it is a pretty quick read. So, as Shawn states in his introduction, this book is an overview of tattooing in Japan from ancient times up through the modern era. The book is organized chronologically, so it starts back in the Jomon era and works up to around the 1930s. The book discusses the first written evidence of tattoos, as well as the origin and inspiration for tattooing in Japan throughout history. The bulk of the book goes over the different people and reasons for getting tattoos in Japan, such as protection tattoos, vow tattoos, good luck tattoos, and severed head tattoos, as well as punishment tattoos. But this book also covers how tattoos were done in Japan, the laws regarding tattoos throughout history, and stories including mention of tattoos. The last 60 pages of the book focus on punishment tattoos, also known as irizumi, and break down the origin of them, the different types that were seen around Japan, how they were performed, as well as accounts of legal records of punishment tattoos in Japan specifically. So I think that Shawn missed out on a lot of important information by not talking about the Yakuza, except for a few sentences that were littered here and there throughout the book. The book focuses on the irizumi that was done in prisons in the 17th century rather than the irizumi that is seen among Yakuza members, and it is used to identify clans and rank. And then the end of the book contains a first-hand account of a Japanese man who has covered his entire body with tattoos and the reception that he received. And it also includes a timeline that breaks down the major events in the history of tattooing in Japan and basically sums up the information given throughout the book. Overall, I think that this book was an interesting read because I am intrigued by the history of tattooing in Japan, and that's why I picked it. And I felt that Shawn backed up a lot of his work with sources and examples and included a lot of helpful information about the history of Japan in general that helped back up the information that he was providing. I think that this book is relevant for anyone interested in learning about the history and origins of tattooing in Japan. I'm not sure if Shawn had a particular audience in mind when writing this book, but I believe that people like me who are doing a project on this topic or are in school learning about it are one of the major audiences of this book. Also, those who enjoy Japanese-style tattoos or tattoo artists who specialize in Japanese-style tattooing are interested in this book as well because the book offers a lot of information about how tattooing was done in Japan, as well as including pictures of tattoos throughout history, but I think it does fall short for this audience for that particular reason, and I will talk about it in a few slides. So to write this book, Shawn relied on a few different techniques. Digital catalogs, libraries, and online databases supplied the bulk of the sources for this book. However, some difficult texts from the Edo era were translated by 20th century researchers Mitsuoka Shinichi and Tanaka Kogai. Most of these difficult texts were novels or stories that talked about tattooing, such as romance novels, woodblock print manga panels, and written records of brothel rumors. Shawn also looked at legal documents that had specific examples of tattooing used as punishments in the past in Japan. So, like many reviews of this book, I think that the title can be a bit misleading for readers. The book does include a fair amount of pictures and illustrations that help show tattoos in Japan, but it is not dominated by pictures like the title may suggest. It also does not include primarily punishment tattoos. So if someone is hoping to have a book like this to either look at pictures of Japanese-style tattooing or focused only on irizumi or punishment tattoos, this book may come as a bit of a disappointment. But that being said, if you are interested in the history of tattooing in Japan in general and don't really care if the pictures are the primary thing, then this book is great. So my recommendation for Shawn would be to completely change the title of the book because I think the information is useful, but I think that if you change the title, it would better represent what is being talked about because I don't think it constitutes itself as an illustrated history. As I said before, I really think that this book could have benefited from colored pictures rather than only black and white pictures, and the only full-body colored pictures are the ones on the front and back cover of the book. I think it really would have just elevated the information and been able to show the different colors that were used throughout history in Japan. An overall critique that I have of this book as well is that I feel like the transitions between chapters could have been a bit smoother. It felt like every chapter ended pretty abruptly and there weren't any introductory paragraphs or conclusions. It just kind of hopped right into the information. So I think if he added more transitions, it would have made it a lot easier to read. And my final critique is that although Sean states that this traces tattooing in Japan to the modern day, he really only went up to the 1930s. So I would have loved to have more information about current day tattooing in Japan and how perceptions and motivations have changed over time and what it looks like today. All in all, I really did enjoy reading this book, and I learned a lot about the history of tattooing in Japan as well as general information about Japan's history. I was impressed with the amount of information and figures that were included in this book, and it really shows how much research and dedication Sean put into putting this book together. Overall, I would recommend this book to anyone who is looking for a book that talks about the entire history of tattooing in Japan. So that concludes my Pecha presentation review of Eric Shawn's book, Tattoos as Punishment, An Illustrated History of Tattooing in Japan. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.